Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the podcast. In this episode, I am joined by Danny Kennedy from DJK Fitness. He is a fitness and mindset mentor, host of the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, which is absolutely going crazy right now, and founder of Unify Active. I've been following Danny on social media for a couple of years now, and we'd never crossed paths, particularly in Melbourne or in any of our groups or work or anything like that. But I'd been liking and supporting his content for many years now, and it was the way that he shared his process. One, he shares some great tips on fitness and lifestyle and mindset and stuff like that, but the other side was the vulnerability that he shared in the failures and in the moments that showed his true authenticity, which is not something that you see all the time on social media. And it made me grow this massive respect for him, because it is a time in social media where people are just sharing the wins and maybe fabricating the stories of things, where Danny was sharing the truth, and I resonated with that. So when we did meet at the start of the year, I had to ask him to come on the podcast. In this episode, we talked about what comes first, having a fit body or a fit mindset, embracing your failures as important lessons in your life to help you pivot in the right direction, how your mindset shapes your reality, and how to use that with the law of attraction to create the life and the results that you want, the difference between instant and gradual change, and also we talked about long-term thinking and long-term results and why it's so important in a time where everyone's focused on the magic pill, the next process, or the magic solution to get things done quickly. We share some of the same mentors and people that we look up to and read their content and their teachings in the world, and it shows the power of having a mindset like this and thinking in this way, how you can create the life you want to live. This was such a fun conversation. I'm so glad we got to share it. There's going to be so many points in here for you to take and use in your daily life. So I'm pumped for this. I can't wait. Thanks for tuning in. Also, before we kick off this episode, as always, I want to say thank you so much for your support on all the platforms that you're listening on or watching on YouTube. If you could just take 1 second to click subscribe, click like, leave a little review would be amazing, especially if you enjoy this episode. But even better, in the world of social media, if you could come across to Instagram, The Conscious Podcast, and follow, you will see all the clips from this episode and also all the previous episodes. And also on that, you'll be able to connect with the guest and also myself, finding our profiles on there. And I absolutely love when people come over and send a message through the podcast page or mine and just say what they learned from these episodes, the biggest takeaway, the valuable points, how they've started to implement this, or maybe whether you've resonated with something that we've talked about. For me, I do what I love and I love what I do. And this podcast is a massive part of sharing conscious conversations, but also connecting with people like you that resonate with these conversations. So head over and connect. And also, on top of that, if you look on my profile, leading into the new year, I am launching all of my exciting projects. I've got my Conscious Blueprint course that is ready to join. It's the program that I've been sharing for the past 5-6 years, helping people connect to their purpose, their values, their mission in life, and help them create their conscious blueprint to create the life they want to live. On top of that, I also have my Conscious Mentorship group, which is a group where I get to support you along your journey to creating that life. I've got so many exciting things to share in that, like events, like Q&As, like workshops, all these really powerful things, these teachings, to help you implement them in your life so that you can elevate and create a life that you want to live. Because I believe that you are made for more. So that's why I've created all these exciting things. So head over to my profile, go to the links in the show notes, and you'll see everything that I'm doing. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Danny, thanks for being here, bro.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Welcome to the podcast. We've rescheduled a few times to get here, but it's finally happened. I'm grateful. We met this year, when Big Joe was in town, but I've been following you for a while, bro. Mad stalker vibes. But I can't remember when, and you don't really get on Instagram 3 years ago, whatever it may be, but I don't know how I even stumbled across you. It must have been like the fitness wave of me being like, oh, follow these fitness people, but out of some reason, maybe it was Keep It Cleaner, maybe I don't know where, but I did, and it's been awesome to watch your journey, man, and to see you go from in fitness and then build all the businesses and stuff that you've had. But also I like that you show the lows as well. And you try, you share so vulnerably. And honestly, there was one post one time where you shared that no one registered for the program or whatever.
Yep.
And that helped me so much because I had just launched something, or it was a couple of months before that, and no one did it. But I was like, I'm not going to share this with anyone because I feel so embarrassed, ashamed, all these things. What allows you to be so vulnerable, and how has it benefited you in what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would probably trace it all the way back to growing up. Like I grew up playing basketball and football, but basketball was my passion. Like there was nothing else that I was doing. Like there was no plan B. It was like, this is it. I'm playing basketball professionally. And so throughout that journey, I was very fortunate and very grateful to play at like a really high level and do some really cool things. But in the space of playing at like that top level, I was the very bottom end of that. And so that meant that, and growing up in Horsham in country Victoria, like we had an incredible group of players. Like if you look back now at some of the amount of players that have come from Horsham and gone on to play, AFL and professional basketball, there's a lot. And so I found myself early on being very much so people pleaser, and just everything I was kind of doing was just trying to get validation, right? And then throughout that process, as I said, I was cut over and over and over again from teams. I, would be the last person to get minutes. Like all of these little things just continue to accumulate. And so I realized very early on, firstly, that one, I didn't have the skill that a lot of the players I was around did. And so that's what led me to really understanding, okay, well, my work ethic is one of my assets, right? And so I really doubled down on work ethic as much as I possibly could. And throughout, that period of time from, let's say, 12 years old through till about 21, after just going through having so many failures like over and over and over again, I just almost became desensitized to it, and obviously early on and even towards the end, they still hurt. They were still frustrating and disappointing, but it didn't really deter me from the path that I thought I was on. And if anything, it became a driving factor. And when I look back now with, in hindsight, the last few years in particular of playing, even though that were they were the most successful years, it was probably almost to prove a point more so than the love of actually playing. Like I'd probably fallen out of love with it well before I stopped. Yeah. But I was just adamant of not letting those failures be the thing that made me walk away from it. And it was almost like a, fuck you, I'll kind of show you, and I'm going to continue to keep going, and no matter what you say or do, like that is not going to deter me from where I want to go. And so I guess in some sense there was a fair bit of vulnerability there early on, forced vulnerability, I guess you could say. And then when I started posting fitness content, so I had an ankle reconstruction in 2013, and I was kind of at the peak of my basketball career at that point. And so in the moment, it was like the worst thing that had ever happened. It was like this, full depressed for a month or two. But then after a short period of time, I realized I just didn't miss it. I was like, I don't actually miss it at all. And I was obsessed with fitness. I'd already done my PT qualification in school. And by then, when I really looked back at it properly, like I was way more interested and passionate about fitness than what I was about basketball. And so I kind of saw the opportunity to build my career as a coach. I competed in bodybuilding for a few years after I quit basketball as well. And so I started sharing content on social media. And initially it was the exact opposite of vulnerability. Like I didn't tell anyone that I'd created this second account, which is like my normal account now. But I really enjoyed it. It was fulfilling just to post content every day about fitness and share my journey. And obviously in time, people started to, find that page and started to get a bit more engagement with people that I knew as well. And I guess I threw myself in the deep end by competing in bodybuilding, like 4 months after I quit basketball. I didn't tell anyone I was competing. No one I knew had competed before. And I'd never posted content online that would suggest that I was going to compete. And so I stepped on stage. It was an incredible experience. And I was kind of hooked for the few years after that. But around that time is when I let go of all fucks given about what anyone thought of me. And it was just such a liberating, freeing feeling. And much to my surprise, when I look back now and realize that a lot of the anxiety and stress that I had throughout all of those years, like from high school through till 21, was self-inflicted. You know, it was worrying about other people's opinions. It was assumptions of what people thought. It was caring about things that just didn't fucking matter. And so I wasn't really living authentically at all. And so when I started to feel what it actually felt like to live authentically and in alignment, it was just such a good feeling. And to my surprise at the time, the feedback was great. Like, I was getting a lot of support from people I didn't expect to get support from, getting a lot of questions about what I was doing, which felt really good because, you know, up until then, I'd never been... I don't even know how to put it, and it sounds a bit weird saying it out loud, but I'd never been someone that people wanted, I guess you could say, in a sense. As that doesn't make sense either, but you know, when you go from being, I'll refer to it as like the bottom of the barrel in everything that you've done. Literally, like, I felt that way, that it was like everything that I did, I was like just fucking hanging on at the bottom. And so to go from that to then having people who, you know, I probably had an assumption of that people didn't really like me or whatever it was, and starting now to get people reaching out, asking for help and whatnot, it was a good feeling. And it was also that transfer from everything being about me to then everything being about helping other people. And so sharing my content online, just right from day one, I'm not sure what was the driving factor. I was just very adamant that I wanted to make it really raw, relatable, and vulnerable to an extent. And it wasn't like I was intentionally going, I'm going to be really vulnerable. It was just like, I just want to show it for what it is, you know? And so I've kind of kept up with that ever since, like in my content, in whether it be podcasts, social media, email list. I've tried to be very relatable, very authentic. And I think because I knew what it felt like to be out of alignment, I was like, fuck that. I'm not going back to that. I'm just staying in this lane because it feels good, and whatever happens, happens. And so referring back to, you know, the original question, I know this has dragged on a bit, but the post that you're talking about in particular, when I finished basketball and shifted across to fitness, I had to let go. Like, I had that identity change, right? The identity shift. And I found it difficult initially. And so I went through all of this, and then it got to about 2 years ago, so about 24 months ago now. I'd been doing personal development for probably 4 or 5 years and had continued to dive deeper and deeper and see so much of a shift in myself and my results and relationships and everything. And so I was like, you know what, all of the conversations I'm having are gravitating towards personal development and mindset, even with my current fitness clients. And with one of my mentors, we had a session, and she asked me, you know, what do you want? I told her, I want more online clients, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, well, you don't. I was like, well, I fucking do. And I was like, why do you say that? And she said, well, you've just told me how busy you are, and you'd have fuck all time to do anything else, because I was PTing flat out. Yeah. She said, with your online coaching business, there's a lot of resistance there because the structure is not something that feels fulfilling. You're just responding to people, telling them the same shit every week, and it feels like you're just going in circles. And so after that, I kind of shut down my whole coaching business and started from scratch. And so I cancelled, whatever it was, maybe 7 or 8 grand worth of recurring clients. I stopped PTing from 12 o'clock onwards. And this was all off the basis of starting to understand the law of attraction, the law of vibration, and how I was asking, or I had an intention for something that I wasn't creating space for. And so I created the space for it. I started to structure everything in a way that felt fulfilling and aligned. And that included incorporating more of the mindset and personal development in my coaching, because that's what was really lighting me up. It was kind of like how I felt about fitness 10 years ago. And I obviously still find the fitness side of things very fulfilling, but it had shifted a bit. And so I kind of went through this whole identity thing again. I was like, fuck, what are people going to think if I start posting mindset content when I've never spoken about it publicly before? And I moved through that very quickly, I guess, because of the understanding and the tools that I'd gathered and the fact that I'd been through that before. But I launched my first mastermind, and I promoted it for about 4 weeks and had 0 signups. And so I was kind of battling in my head of going, all right, do I just play it off and just, act like I sold it out and just wait 4 weeks and launch another one, or what do I do? And I just thought to myself, nah, fuck that. Like, why do I expect this to go well straight away? When I started PT, it took 12 months to build a busy a busy schedule of a full list of clients. When I started online coaching, it took years to get to that point. When I started the podcast, it took years to get to a point where people were listening. So why is this any different? And so that's when I really started to go, all right, I need to embody the version of myself now that I'm saying that I will be when I get this outcome that I'm looking for. In this case, it was, impact, fulfillment, revenue, and building a business that I wanted to build. And so I kind of said to myself, all right, well, if I'm going to be fully authentic, fully aligned and all the rest of it, then I'm not just going to sit here and fucking pretend that shit's all great. Like there's nothing to be ashamed about, and I wanted other people, because I knew that people would experience this themselves, whether it was starting their podcast, starting their business, whatever, posting on social media. It doesn't fucking matter how good it is at the start. And so I put out this post talking about, look, I had 0 signups. That's okay. I know this is going to take time. But I also put an emphasis on the second launch of it, of going to myself, okay, regardless of whether I have 100 or 0 people sign up, I'm going to show up to this whole mastermind with the intent, with the energy, with the frequency of this being filled with 1,000 people. Because that's how I have to be now. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for this outcome to just fall in place. Like we can only attract what we normalize. And at the same time, I'm thinking, all right, well, if I, sell this mastermind as a course afterwards, I can't be sitting here, delivering it as if there's one person, even if there is, because 12 months down the track, if shit blows up, then this is the product people are going to see. And so I know I've gone a bit off track here, but it was more so just understanding, and I've had so much feedback over the years, particularly with the podcast, of people sending through messages saying like, look, this is one of my favorite shows because of the fact that I can relate, and that it's not sugar-coated, and I talk online all the time about I'll have a drink, or I'll fucking make mistakes, I'll have heaps of failures, and I feel like being able to show that is relatable because it's real. Like social media most of the time is just a highlight reel. And it can be very helpful. It's a very useful tool, social media. But also, that is out of alignment. Me coming online and just making everything look like the world's perfect. How can I possibly expect my, client avatar to be able to relate to that in any way, shape or form? And so I just started to notice, like, the more I was open and vulnerable about certain things, the more it actually landed for people. Because then they could also follow along with the aftermath of like, okay, he had 0 signups. Now it's 12 months later. He's got a full book of clients paying 10x the amount of money that he charged in the first one where he had 0 signups. And so it was more so just being able to show my journey. And I think that's what my content has always been. It's just very much a reflection of what I'm going through, where I'm at in my life, and being able to relay my experiences to hopefully help someone else.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, there's so many similarities to my path of like the soccer thing as well. I wasn't the bottom pick. I was the top pick for a lot of these things. But then when I went overseas to Europe, I was bottom. Mm-hmm. And my agent literally said, you're never going to make it. Go do the business. Because I was doing network marketing at the time with the supplement company. And he was like, you should go do that. You're not going to make it in soccer. There was a little bit like, I'll make it work. Like, fuck you. Who are you to tell me that? Didn't make it. I wasn't committed to that. But I love the business and the helping people. And it was, I guess, the similar side of like, I didn't go into fitness, but I went into this side of things. Started my podcast, all of that. And the one thing that keeps standing out in there that I think I can really relate on is the relationship with failure. I've tried so many things. Like, I've rebranded the podcast so many times. I was telling you before about my old business and community. I've started an app, which ultimately failed. Lost a lot of money along the way too. Many different businesses. I think it's over 15 that I've started in my 20s. Yeah. So the muscle of failure isn't, I try this, it fails, my life's over.
Not at all.
It's, I'm going to try it. Wherever it goes is going to go, but it may work, it may not. Like, I've started a soccer academy before. It didn't work. It just so happens now with my brother, we took all those lessons, put it into this one, and with a few ads, we have 200 kids.
It was like, it's the law of polarity, right? I had this conversation with a client yesterday. Everything is just perspective, firstly, right? One of the conversations I've had a lot in the last few weeks in particular, in alignment with the whole frequency side of things, like our state, our emotional, energetic, mental state will always determine our perception of every experience that we have.
Yeah.
And so you can never be made to feel a certain way. It's just what meaning you put behind whatever the experience is. And so the law of polarity states that to every action is an opposite action or reaction, right? For an up, there has to be a down. Yeah. If there's a left, there has to be a right. For something to be positive, there has to be negative at the exact same time with some perspective. So throughout all of these shitty experiences, and similar to yourself, I'm sure, I look back at all of the worst experiences I had, and hands down, they're the best things that have ever happened to me, for me, right? So with the law of polarity, you're looking at, okay, well, this business has failed, or this didn't go the way that I thought it should go, or how I wanted it to go. Firstly, it's fucking wild to think that you know how everything should go, right? Like when you really put that in perspective, it's batshit crazy to sit here and go, oh, I know how everything should go and how everyone should be. Like that's the most egotistical thing ever. But we all think like that. And so if it's failed, it means that I am this much fucking closer to success, because I now know exactly what doesn't work and what I should have done differently. And on the opposite end of that spectrum, like that exact failure has to be, by universal law, an extreme positive in some way, shape or form. And so again, when I look back at ankle reconstruction, at getting cut from all these teams, at relationship breakdowns, whatever it is, it's like they were all meant to happen. And without those, I wouldn't have the experiences or the connection or the whatever that I do have now. And so it's just how you look at it. And I think that's in alignment with removing judgment. You know, if I go outside and I got a flat tire, good or bad, who knows, right? Because if I didn't have a flat tire, I could have got T-boned on the way out of here. I don't know. So having a flat tire might seem like an inconvenience, but it could have been the fucking biggest blessing of my life. I don't know. Who knows? You know, and so it's just all perception. It's like, and you, as I said, you become desensitized to it to a little bit. Like, I know it's super cheesy and cliche, but if you're not failing, you are not doing anywhere near enough, or you're not getting anywhere near enough outside of your comfort zone. Like, failure should not be seen as this big scary thing that, you know, we want to avoid at all costs. Like, I look at it now and I'm like, if I'm not failing often, then I'm not doing enough, or I'm not putting myself out there enough. And so when you can have that approach to it, it's even like decision making, right? Like, my fiance is fucking horrible at making decisions, like even like what shoes to wear or what to eat for dinner. And I've been saying to her, like, the quicker you make a decision, the sooner you know whether it's the right or wrong one. You know, you can delay a decision for 3 months and still make the wrong one. You've just wasted 3 months. You could have made that decision day one and it's still wrong, but now you've saved yourself 3 months of time and effort and energy and mental capacity. And so it's just perception. And if you fail, like this saying that I've said forever, we'll use a podcast as an example, or a business, because, you know, I know, as you just mentioned, you've started so many businesses. Like, if I'm sitting here and I'm avoiding something due to the fear of failure, then even if I failed, that's already reality right now. Like, if I don't start a podcast because I'm worried about no one listening to it and not going well, or me being shit at it, that is already a reality. So worst case scenario has already happened. So you literally have nothing to lose. It's like, even if it failed, you're going to be in the position you're in now. So it's already worst case scenario.
Yeah. I feel like that perspective, though, is something that is not common for people, and that relationship with failure. I didn't know we were going to go this way, but like, what a great topic to talk about is, like, I know it from soccer, from the businesses, is a failure is a lesson. And I was just I happened to stumble across, you know, your Bob Proctors, all of these people at 18. So I had Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, Zig Ziglar in my ear because I'd listened to the audios. So whenever I was driving, and I used to live in Mildura, so country boy as well, would drive 6 hours to Melbourne to play soccer on the weekend, drive 6 hours home. That 6 hours was Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, all this. So in my head, it was always like, a failure is a step. Learn from it. Like, it's never like failure, that's it. But why do you think it cripples people so much?
I think it's people just have a distorted idea of time. You know, like we were talking before, like some couple of people that we were quite close with just recently have passed away. Both of them were not in an age bracket where you're expecting them to pass away, right? Both very young. And it was actually Bob Proctor, I believe, or it might have even been his son Brian, that said this analogy that stuck with me about an hourglass, right? Like an hourglass, you've got the sand in the top, the sand in the bottom. And no matter how much sand there is in the top, you don't know when that sand is going to end. Yeah. And so I remember Bob. Bob talked about when he was in his 20s, he had a business partner that, you know, they'd had all this excitement and they were going to fucking take over the world and start all these businesses, and they already had started to build something special. And, you know, they were at some event and his business partner left, had a car crash and died. And so he said in this video I was watching, Bob was like, if I had have asked him how much sand he had left, he would have answered, I have plenty of sand left in the top of the hourglass. But he didn't. And so I think that's the other thing, you know, to answer the actual question. People don't have the urgency that they should have. You know, like, it's super cliche, but time will go past quick as fuck. And there, as we all know, there is never a perfect time to do anything. Like, people just have this wrong impression that I'm going to get to a point where I feel like I'm a great podcaster and then I'll launch my show. Or I'm going to wait until the market's good and then I'm going to launch my business, or whatever it may be. And it's like there's this safety net. But I think the quickest way to get to the place where you and I probably are is to fail. Because you realize, it's not the end of the world, right? I'm still good. I'm still healthy. I'm still safe, like whatever. And now, as you said before, now I'm this much closer to getting to where I said I wanted to go initially. Like, it's wild to think, even D Martini, we were obviously talking about him before we recorded. And in our first episode on the podcast, I remember he said something along the lines of, like, as much as we want to keep our focus on what we want and not put our time and energy towards the things that we don't like or don't want, you're batshit crazy if you're starting a business and you haven't put some consideration to what could possibly go wrong. And so being able to look at it and go, okay, if everything goes to shit, how will I respond? Or what can I put in place so that I have a plan if and when shit hits the fan? Right? And so once you've got that out of the way, then, you know, put that to the side, leave it, detach from that completely, and then go on about, you know, the intention of where you're wanting to go. But when something goes wrong, you know, again, you got to be fucking crazy to think that there's the likelihood of something going wrong is minimal to none. Like, that's just wild.
When has anyone ever set out and gone, I'm going to go do this, and it's just all perfect alignment of A, B, C, D?
Never, bro. And if they have, you know, and this is another topic, there's another conversation altogether, but if they have, whatever they've chose to do is nowhere near big enough. You know, there's a very common theme, very common conversation recently as well with my mentoring clients, is that people set very attainable or logical goals because it now reduces the risk of embarrassment, shame, and failure. Right? And either set very small goals or half-ass it. Because if I half-ass it and I don't get it, well, then I've got the excuse of, like, I didn't really have a proper crack. Like, I didn't do it properly. And this all stems from exactly what we're talking about. Just this fear of failure, judgment, shame, embarrassment, whatever. You know, and I think the other part of this is just realizing that no one gives a fuck. We're not that special, you know. Well, we are. We're all very special, right? But no one's spending their day fixated on what you're doing. And so we build up this assumption of what everything means. But it's just an assumption. And chances are no one will give a fuck, right? If anything, and you know, I kind of saw evidence off the back of this, and it's not like I shared that post that we talked about before for fucking sympathy, but off the back of that post, I got a heap of business. I got a heap of feedback from people going, I needed to see this. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad you posted this. It's not something that I would have ever expected to see from, like, whatever it may be. So people just need to, I don't know, let go of this idea of the fact that everything's just going to be the exact way they expect it to be. And if it's not, it's also wrapping your head around the fact that that's completely okay. Maybe it was meant to go that way. Yeah. Like, I genuinely lean into the whole statement of, like, when things don't work out the way that I wanted or expected them to work out, it's because they were meant to happen better. And I was just setting an expectation that was way too low. I don't know if that answers the question, but...
Yeah, but it's a perspective that, again, like, it sounds like you've done a lot of internal work to get to that place, because that's not a common belief in the mind. Like, I post about it. I feel like everyone did the Tony Robbins events and listened to all these Bob Proctors and all that. But if I say Bob Proctor to someone walking down the street, they'll be like, huh?
Yeah, exactly right.
It's not a common, personal growth. I felt everyone's gone on this personal growth journey of, finding their values and all these types of things, or ran a business. As I'm finding with a lot of my clients, it's like they haven't. And I've had people that are in their 60s come into my program, and I'm like, why are you coming to me? I'm at that time, I'm in my 20s. And they're like, it's because of what you share, and because I haven't been exposed to this. I've just lived a life.
Oh, of course.
And it just so happens that, whether it was through social media or word of mouth, that it's been put in front of me, and I want to change then. And that's what inspires me, is people still, like even my mum, right? Didn't grow up in personal development. I said Tony Robbins, she's like, oh, Shallow Hal. And I'm like, no, he was just featured in the elevator. Like, that wasn't him. But, she started coming to my events. And she's not diving into it as much as I do, but it's starting to, through being around me and stuff and me posting about it, she's starting to go, oh, you're not just, on this crazy little journey of in your own head. It's like, no, you're actually helping people with some cool stuff.
100%. I don't want to sound like a fucking idiot here and just keep bringing up all these universal laws, but it's the law of exposure, right? It really is. And that's something I've wrapped my head around a lot in the last 12 months is, similar to yourself, I'm sure. You go on this journey and you start to have these different perspectives and understandings, and you start using them, and you see how it drastically impacts your life. And then you start thinking, why the fuck's everyone else not doing this? Yeah. Or like, this person should do this because I know it'd help them, or this person would really benefit from understanding this. And so you feel like you need to go out and fucking help everyone or try and help everyone. But this is what really allowed me to remove judgment completely. And the thing that really allowed me to do that was realizing that I can't possibly expect anyone else or everyone else for that fact to be able to see things the way that I do if they haven't been exposed to what I've been exposed to. So that, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, work, fitness, whatever, like if someone has not been exposed to anything different outside of their bubble, there is no possible way that they would be able to have the same perspective as me. Yeah. And so I can't expect that. And so, you can use this in any situation. It could be a boss that you don't like. It could be a friend. It could be a family member. Like, unless you've walked your whole life in their shoes, unless you have their conditioning, their trauma, their limiting beliefs, their current level of consciousness, you don't know that you wouldn't be exactly the same. Yeah. And so if I don't know that I wouldn't be exactly the same, who the fuck am I to sit here and go, you shouldn't be that way, or you should understand this, or you shouldn't talk to that person like that, or you shouldn't have treated me like this. It's like, I could be the same as them if I was in their shoes. And so just knowing that, I think it just allows you to, one, not take things personally at all. And two, just have a bit more empathy. And as you kind of alluded to before, it can take people a long time, but people have to be ready for it. They have to make the decision themselves. Yeah. I know for myself, some of the books that I'd read previously did fuck all for me at the time. I hope you let us swear on this show, because otherwise you're going to have a long editing day. But I've read certain books that did nothing for me when I first read them. And then 5 years later, I've read it again. It's been the most profound book that I've ever read. So it was like some of these things have been like the most profound things I've ever heard. And I'd heard, read, or watched them previously. But in that moment in time, I wasn't open to it. Yeah. I wasn't ready for it. Yeah. And so it didn't have an impact. And so, I don't know what the fuck I'm even talking about here. But
I read the same book every new year, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Every single time I read it, I get something different. It's like each time, because I've evolved, the message that's supposed to kind of land will land. And it's even with content now. I was watching James Smith.
Yep.
Yeah. Watching his stuff, and he's obviously very blunt and straightforward. He's like, just post the same fucking video over and over. Because that message, he was saying it from a results perspective, but he's like, if it's a good message, it doesn't matter, because especially on social media, people won't see it. Or some people won't see it. So if you're not posting it because you think, oh, people will see it and think I've posted again. Yeah. It's that, you said, exposure. It might not be the right time for someone in their life to comprehend what you're saying. And I guess at the moment where you posted the failure, for me was like, fuck, can relate. And that gave me a little bit more respect towards you. Not that I knew you or didn't. It was just like, oh yeah, I can relate. So you did exactly that thing. And I was one that went, yeah, I see you more for just fitness and looking good. There's a human there, which is nice on social media. When like you said, like there's not, well, I see it a lot, but it can be more superficial.
Yeah. But even just quickly on that messaging thing of like repeating your message, McDonald's don't say I'm loving it once and then never fucking show it again.
Yeah.
Say it fucking over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so that should be a very common thing of like, we mentioned DiMartini before. He's been very consistent with his messaging for however many years. What did you say? 40 years or something like that? Something crazy like that.
Yeah, 40 years. I think since he was 21, yeah.
But that should be a staple for every business. If you've got your mission statement or your purpose or your messaging, like you should be saying that shit as often as possible.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, the post that you put up last week, maybe an eighth of your audience saw it, or even the ones that did were fucking doing something else and they didn't even really look at it. And so posting, like, I don't know. It's like, that's something that I've tried to do a lot ever since I started, very much so with the fitness side of things and in particular like nutrition as well. Just consistency with the message. And if your message isn't consistent, it doesn't do much for your business, does it? Because it's like, okay, well, we said this last time, now he's saying this. And that's not to say you should not change, or evolve in time, but it's more so like keep drilling your message home as often as possible. Yeah. And particularly for a business, because it's like if someone's seeing that shit, like we can all think in our head of like an annoying as fuck ad on the radio or TV. Let's say it's for curtains. If I'm ever thinking of buying curtains, there's probably only fucking one place that I can think of that sells curtains because I've heard the shit ad 800,000 times. And so it might be a shit ad, but it's effective, right? Because they're
tiles.
messaging. Yeah, correct. Yeah, fucking tiles. So yeah, it's just like that consistency. You should just keep pumping that out as often as you can. And it can be the same video, it could be different video. The messaging should be the same.
Yeah. Like, how did you find that mission or that message to share? Because I think a lot of people are in the unknown of going, I don't know what my, to be consistent in what. How did you connect with that and when did it land for you?
Well, even on the way over here today, I was listening to a video by David Bayer. Have you seen any David stuff? Oh, you'd really like it. I'll send you through some things after this. And he said something along the lines of, your client avatar, particularly if you're in the coaching space or if you're in, a service-based business, particularly, let's say coaching, you are your client.
Yeah.
Right? In a lot of scenarios, maybe not all of them, but majority of the time, you are the client that you're trying to speak to. And so to answer your question, early days when I became very obsessed with training and nutrition, I made every mistake possible. Tried all the training principles, all the diets, everything. I was obsessed. I was just like trying everything all the time, trying to find the right perfect formula. And that led to a horrible relationship with food, led to severely overtraining. And so I was like the same height that I am now when I moved to Melbourne, and I was 25 kilos less. And I'm not fucking that massive now. Well, I think I am, but I'm not that big now. So I was severely underweight, kidney problems, mentally consumed by training and food all the time. And it was just very unhealthy. And so once I came across evidence-based scientific nutrition information from reliable sources and started investing in proper coaching, investing in seminars, education, and really wrapping my head around what works, it changed my life drastically, right? Like before we even talk about the whole business side of things, like it completely freed me, the nutrition side of things, the training, I started seeing results, it allowed me to build a business, it allowed me to experience great things, whatever. And so I was just like, well, I'm just going to share what the fuck I've experienced. And so like that message has stayed the same because that's exactly what I follow. But if I come across something next week that suggests the exact opposite and there's research behind it and I start implementing it and I feel like it's something that works and is aligned, then my message would probably change. But so to answer your question, it's always just been a reflection of myself or a reflection of whatever I've experienced or my beliefs. Yeah. And so I think that's why it's also important, in my opinion, to not speak in definites. It's like I think Hormozy says it a lot too. Like, you don't tell people what to do. Tell them what you did, how it worked for you, and what the outcome was, and they can take away what from that piece of content what they want to take away from it.
Yeah.
And so to get that message, I went through a heap of shit, found the solution, and then shared the fuck out of the solution. So then people didn't have to make the same mistakes that I did.
Yeah. And because you like a lot of your work is, fitness side of things and the mind side of things, which one do you think is more important first? Having a fit, health side of your life, or having the mindset to start?
I've genuinely been thinking about this a fair bit lately, and I can't come to a conclusion, right? Basically, well, the conclusion that I've come to, if there is one, is that it's not either or. It's and. It's not or, it's and. I think it has to be both, and I'll quickly explain why. When, as I said before, when you're in a good mental state, your perception of everything is high frequency. It's positive. It's a massive improvement, right? How you get to that state is a different story. And so, some of the tools that you can use to get to that state obviously include physical fitness. And so I kind of look at it and it's almost like it's just all ties in together. When I'm in great physical shape, I'm in a great headspace. When I'm in a great headspace, I want to go and do physical things, to be in good physical shape, or to go and make the right move for my business, or to go and invest in myself, or to just express gratitude, to reach out and connect with people. So it just ties perfectly in together. And before I did a proper deep dive into all of the mindset side of things, I'd severely undervalued the mental side of things. I'd already seen obviously glimpses of like, okay, when I'm in great physical peak shape, when I'm extremely disciplined, when I'm structured, I feel good. And so I just started, that was just a formula that worked for me. Whereas now one of the things I talk about even with my clients is like, okay, what are some of the tools we can use to put you in a great state first thing in the morning? Or what are some of the things we can use in the middle of the afternoon when frequency starts to drop to bring yourself back into that high frequency? And some of the most effective tools, in my opinion, is physical fitness, is training. It's like you never regret going to the gym. You never regret doing a meditation, right? And so it goes full circle, in my opinion. So it's like to be in great physical condition, I believe you have to be in a great mental state. Yeah. Because when you're not in a great mental state, the choices you make are not going to be in alignment with being in great physical shape, and vice versa. So it just kind of all ties in together. So similar to when people talk about, nutrition, it's like 80% diet, 20% training. It's 100% of both.
Yeah.
All right, it's 100% of both. And in this case, I believe it's the same thing, 100% of both. We see anyone who's in a fucking fantastic mental state, like often, I'm not just talking about, okay, feel good for half an hour and then go back to normal. Someone whose frequency is naturally quite high, 99% of the time, there's someone who looks after themselves physically as well.
Yeah. What's
your thoughts?
If I look back recently to I'm saying to you, and the listeners will know from previous episodes, like I've had the most rock bottom moment of my life, start of this year, and I found myself, last year, because it's happened for 18 months, so it's been a very interesting period of my life. Before COVID, probably should have said lockdown. Before lockdown, I had just finished playing soccer in Mildura, won the championship, all that. I was very fit. Similar sort of thing of like skinny but athletic. I was running, I think it was 12 Ks a game. We had a tracker on. So I went from very athletic, very skinny, very underweight, probably about 60 kilos, to then lockdown and not really looking after myself, sporadically in the gym or going to air locker and stuff like that, to then gaining a lot and going up to 85. Found myself mad dad bod, but not in a place where I was like, I looked in the mirror and went, I don't look the same. One, I'm happy I'm putting on weight, and I was also vegan for 8 years. Okay. And vegan in the way of nothing wrong with being vegan, but was undernourishing myself in a big way, and not focusing on my calories. Didn't have no knowledge on that. Just kind of did whatever I wanted to do. Yeah. And that's okay until you get a result where you're like, well, this isn't working. Yeah. So something had to change. Started eating meat again. But still predominantly plant-based. It was the moment of when we found out we were going to have a child. I looked at myself and went, I'm not in shape. Not that I couldn't run around, but I went for a run with a friend and I couldn't do 3Ks.
Yep.
I was struggling with that and I went, I feel heavier and I'm okay because I've put on weight, but I want to shift that because I know when I feel good, you also look good. It does something for you.
Yeah.
Not that I'm competing or anything like that, but when I moved into this apartment, the gym and the sauna, when I had a shit mindset this year, and I'm someone that preaches, consciousness and all about the mindset work, but when I was going through the toughest moment, my mindset wasn't there. I could still find gratitude, but it was like a struggle. What helped was go in the gym. You don't have to do 2 hours.
Yeah, of course.
Just do, if that's superset 2 times, just do that.
Yeah.
And by doing that consistently and eating better,
last
year I was running a bar, so I was drinking a lot.
Yeah.
All these things that I didn't notice, but did notice at a certain point, went, that's not helping me. That consumption of alcohol, sugar, all these things. If I just start to make those little differences or little changes, it'll make a difference.
Yeah.
Sitting in the sauna, I used to do ice baths. I used to run ice baths every weekend. I was noticing when I sat in the sauna, I felt better. It was better for my body in whatever way. I don't know the science behind it or whatever, but I was doing so many ice baths that probably my nervous system was like, fuck, chill. Like, you've done that. Like, you've done it a lot. You probably need to relax a bit more rather than keep putting your body through that. So the sauna for me and the gym helped my mindset because when I started having a routine, started feeling better, feeling stronger. Now I'm in the best sort of shape that I've been in and at the best weight I've been in ever in my life. That started to improve my mindset.
Yeah.
The flip side is back then it was like the mindset was there and the body the body didn't necessarily show, but the mindset got me through.
Yeah.
Now that it's both, it's like, fuck, I feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because the perspective's there, the mindset's there, and then on top of that, the fitness, health side of things, then you bring in the spiritual side where I feel more connected to my mission and my purpose and God than ever before. Bro, like, I feel like I got to 30 and went, oh shit, my 20s were fun. And like I did, traveled and started the businesses. I'm getting old. And I was expecting a child then. So I was like, damn, what does life look like? But it's like, it's a new season, a new chapter, and I feel better than ever before. But I see how both play an important part.
Yeah, definitely.
But one can pull the other in.
Yep. Yeah, correct.
It's a long explanation, but
no, it's good. It's a tough one. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it's
like chicken or egg, but
correct.
It's whatever is the first thing for you at that moment. Because some people might not. What I've seen with my clients is they're so regimented on their fitness and health, in the gym every day, counting their calories, all of that, but their mindset's off. But it's like if that's there, then that's a great starting point.
Yeah.
If you have neither,
you're in for a shit time.
Yeah. You probably do need some shake up to happen for one to come in. But I don't know which one comes first, but find one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's most likely going to be different for everyone. I think the takeaway, in my opinion, is that usually one will lead to the other. Whichever one's first, you got to figure out which one's best for you and which one's more suitable for you. But I just know from my experience when I'm doing both, similar to like what you said, that's when I'm in my highest frequency. And when I let it drop, so for example, probably should have said this before, if I let training slip, or if I've got an injury, or for whatever reason training drops off, even when I'm still doing all my non-negotiables, I notice my mindset dips. And so for me, I'm like, okay, it has to be both.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be extreme, but it just has to be both. And
I guess along that journey, you'll notice that, when one slips off, what's happening and what can I do to bring it back?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, for me, it could be an environment change. It could be going to a seminar per se. It could be just shifting one little thing, because then it brings new energy.
Correct.
New state change to those things. And, you were saying before about, the being and the energy of it, and then it attracts the vibration. I think was going to say this before, but I just looked at it and seen it, is that we expect to have the things now, the mindset, the fitness. I know for me that it's always evolving.
Yep.
Our life, our mindset, our fitness. You don't do the 8-week challenge and then you're fit for the rest of your life.
Correct.
I played soccer for 15 years and then I got really unfit, and now it's hard to get back because I've gone so far down that I'm climbing the mountain.
Coming back up.
But you got to keep climbing. Otherwise, you don't get there. But that B part, the being in the energy of it, you said it before. That's where it starts, being in that energy of I want to be this person. I want to have this mindset, this health, this fitness. That's the result, so I need to be that first. Then you naturally will do things that align with that, like look after your health, look after your mind. Then you'll have the result. What you have the results that you have now, and I'm sure you've got aspirations for more things and bigger and better and evolving. Where does that consistency come from for you? Because you've got an incredible business, Unifier. You've got a podcast that there's not many people that have done that many episodes and been that consistent. What are you at?
Like 550 next week.
Whoa, insane. I think I'm closing on 200.
Nice.
Like that, plus your health and fitness, you're in great shape. Got a relationship, all things that are always evolving. How do you keep consistent with all of these things?
It's a good question. I just want to very quickly go back to what you said about the whole being thing, because I think this is really powerful. And for me, when I truly understood this, it did shift everything. The premise of that is that, I know we've got video, but some people are probably listening on audio, but most people typically look at an intention or an aspiration or a goal that they have, and they see it separate to themselves.
Yep.
And so between you and that intention or aspiration is time, effort, space, whatever. What we focus on, it will expand. Where we put our energy, where we put our attention and our intention expands, as in we experience more of it, right? And I always talk about the birthday analogy for people who enjoy their birthday. Someone who enjoys their birthday, it could be Monday, pissing rain, you had a shit sleep, and you got a boring day of work, but you'll just have the best day. It'll all feel great. Feel like things are happening for you. You'll kind of float through the day. You won't get drawn to negativity. It feels good. The reality is no one gives a fuck that it's your birthday, right? So the only difference between that day and any other day is that you have a belief, a strong belief, that you should have a good day because it's your special day.
Yep.
So what we can take away from that is that it's just a choice. It's like, where is my intention? What is my belief? What is my expectation? And how can I alter that? Or how can I be intentional about that to be in this state more often? Because the opposite's true as well. Cut off on the way to work, heaps of traffic, you're late to work. Now you're focused on all these negative, low frequency things, and your day turns to shit unless you have a little circuit breaker. And so with the being and the embodying, what we're trying to do, because keeping in mind that the only reason anyone wants anything is because of how you think you'll feel when you've got it, right? You want a partner because you want to experience love. You want the new car because you want to feel worthy or cool. You want the promotion at work so you can feel powerful and confident, whatever. You want the physique so you can feel more self-belief, more confidence, whatever. Accomplishment, gratitude, whatever you want to list off. So what we're saying is that I'm not going to feel the way I want to feel until I get to this thing. And we see this time and time again. Celebrities, normal, like fucking anyone. People put this expectation on something outside of themselves, and they get it, and they're the same person. Nothing's different, right? You might have this short-term spike of frequency, and then it comes back to normal, because we will always regulate back to our kind of normal frequency, right? So what can we do? And I use 2 examples. The first one being fitness. Like, let's say someone comes to me and wants to lose 30 kilos. The first approach, which we just discussed, they're going to follow the training plan, follow the diet, do this, do that, do this, do that. And at the end, hopefully we look like this. Now, even if that person does look like that at the end, their self-image is still an overweight person who's now lost weight. So when they revert back to normal, normal is overweight. Normal is not aligned with having that physique at all, because in their head, they're doing this program, right? And week 1, they can't fucking wait to finish. Because what they're doing, they're just doing things. That's not who they are. They're just doing things. Now, if we flip the script, and you can use this for anything, I get clients to sit there and visualize in as much detail as possible, what does it look and feel like if you already have that now? in any scenario, new car, new job, physique, partner, money, whatever. Visualize as clear as possible. What does it look like? How does it feel? And they'll tell me how it feels, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, if you woke up this morning and that fell in your lap, who would you have to be for that to be normal? How would you think about training? How would you approach your food? Who would you hang out with? What type of content would you watch? How would you speak to yourself? How would you think about yourself? If you miss a day of training, how would you respond to that? You know, if you fuck up with your nutrition, how do you respond to that? Is it like, oh, I've fucked up and now I've got to start the program again? Or is it like, oh, it's just life, tomorrow I'll go back to normal? And so that person, even before they've lost the 30 kilos, can start living like that version of themselves right now. They can start trying to feel the emotions, whether it's through meditation, visualization, whatever it is. Like, because we know, like, the body doesn't know the difference between a thought and reality. So we see it with negative traumatic experiences. People have a traumatic experience, might be 5 years later, there's a trigger, and then their body's responding the same way, as if they're going through the same experience again. So why can't we use that the opposite way around? Meditation means to become, the word meditation means to become familiar with. So we can use meditation or other tools as a mental rehearsal of how we want to feel, how we're going to respond to certain situations. And so if I leave my meditation and I'm feeling grateful, I'm feeling empowered, I'm feeling abundant, I'm feeling fucking whatever, confident, I am the person who has that outcome now. Now I'm not waiting for anything. I'm not waiting for 12 weeks. I'm not waiting for 5 years. I'm not waiting for shit. I'm saying I'm going to feel that way now, because the basics of law of attraction and law of vibration is that like attracts like. Most people are being one thing and asking for the opposite. And so that's like me grabbing my phone and calling my missus and going, hey, is Carlo there? She'd be like, fuck you talking about? Like, I want to talk to Carlo. And she's like, yeah, but you called my number. It's like, yeah, I know, but I want to talk to, and she'd be like, yeah, but you called the wrong number. And so what I'm getting at is that people are being one way and asking for something that is nothing in alignment with who they're being right now. And so the person that needs to lose the weight, they start living like they've already lost it. However many weeks goes by, it's inevitable that they're going to lose the weight now. And when they've lost it, it's normal. So now they're going to keep it off and everything's sweet. But they've also been feeling confident and happy and everything from week one, because they're not placing their worth or their abundance on something outside of themselves. And so even the other week, I had a client who's rebuilding a business at the moment. You know, had some shit go down the last few years, which was not their fault, but their responsibility. And so they're rebuilding now. They've got a very clear idea of what they want. And some legal stuff came up, right? And so we got on our weekly call, and they were like, I haven't done any of the shit that I meant to do or that I've been doing. I was like, well, how come? And said, I got this email from my lawyer and I just got overwhelmed and shut down. I said, okay, if you had this multi-million-dollar business that you're building now, if that was already a thing, right, and everything was perfect, your life looked exactly the way you wanted it to, and you got an email from your lawyer and you just fucked off for 2 weeks, what happens to that business? He's like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that, you know, if I had it. And I said, yeah, I know, but you can't do it now. Because why would that land in your lap if the way that you respond and react is not in alignment with how you would respond and act when you've got it? And so the whole premise being, like, when you stop thinking that things are outside of yourself and you stop waiting for shit and you just start being it now, you're not constantly checking to see if it's worked. You're not sitting there feeling like you're in lack. None of this shit. And so now it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when you're not looking for it, as we know with everything, it's much easier to attract. It's something much more free flowing because there's no resistance there now, right? And again, you're not placing something outside of yourself, and your self-image has now changed. And so I know this is not the question you asked, but I think this is a valuable thing. So if you think of the stat, I don't know the exact stat, so I'll make it up. The people who win the jackpot in Tats Lotto, I think it's within 1 or 2 years, there's a high percentage of those people who don't have that money anymore, who have spent it or lost all that money. The reason being, nothing about them suggests that they can hold that amount of money. The beliefs around money, their environment, their work ethic, their habits, their mental and physical health, nothing suggests that they're someone who has millions of dollars. 6 months before winning, if they just decided, fuck it, I want to become wealthy. I want to start to generate more income. I want to be someone who attracts a lot of money. Change their money beliefs, learn a new skill set, immerse themselves in content and whatever, seminars, fucking mentors of people, exposing themselves to this lifestyle and who they need to be. Now they win the jackpot, and it's like, it kind of makes sense. It just fits in. So the question I ask people all the time is like, if your intention, your manifestation fell in your lap right now, would it make sense? And if it wouldn't, you're just not ready for it yet, which is okay. That's fine. It just means that you need to change. You need to start getting ready for it. Like I said earlier in the chat, where I said I cancelled all of my online clients. I removed 50% of my PT clients, and I left that space open because I was saying I wanted to build a fucking $100,000 a month coaching business, but there was nowhere for those clients to go. It wasn't set up properly. So I needed to make sure I created that time and energetic space for it to fall into place. Now, to answer your question about the consistency, I genuinely believe that it comes off the back of being an athlete. There's such a big crossover between business and physical health, or in particular, sport or being an athlete. And so it was just that repetitive pattern of structure and routine. And as I said before, due to the failures, relying heavily on my own work ethic and not waiting for someone else to do shit for me, that's what led to that consistency. And my success, if you can even call it that, because it's nowhere near where it's going to be yet across all the different platforms and all the different businesses, but the success that I have seen has not come from any fucking magic pill, any crazy talent, none of that shit. It has been an accumulation of small efforts done consistently well over a significantly long period of time. And so, podcast, good example. I've put out an episode every week since 2016. Took 2 years to really break through into anything worth even talking about in terms of downloads. But do you know the rapper Russ?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was introduced to his music in 2016 and very quickly fucking fell in love with his stuff. And I started to understand his story. So I got introduced to Russ's music in 2016 and I started to learn about him and him as a person and his music and everything. And he talked about the fact that he was tweeting like Dr. Dre and like all of these big producers when in like 2010, 2011, when he was like just out of school, telling them that I'm going to produce a $1 million song for you one day and all this shit. Like there's nothing to suggest that shit is ever going to happen. But it was just like this belief. This is what I'm talking about. It's this belief, is knowing that this shit is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so he put out like a song a week on SoundCloud for 3 years, I think it was. Fuck all downloads. Right? But the whole premise behind it was, okay, if I am consistently building my catalog of music, if I'm consistently building momentum and gaining this compounding, effort that I'm putting in, then when something does blow up, I'm now going to have, like, whoever hears that music is going to have a catalog of music to come back to, and now I've just got a fan for life. An accumulation of work, right? And so I took that same approach with everything, with Instagram, with the podcast, with my business, every single thing. It was like, it's nothing that I don't know, realistically, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff that I have learnt over the years, but it was more so just the understanding of it's the small, I think Robin Sharma says it best, it's the small, seemingly insignificant tasks done exceptionally well on a daily basis that lead to significant results. And so that was the approach I took. I'm like, it's not going to be anything crazy. It's not going to be a secret that I don't know. It's not going to be this hack that I fucking got to pay $100,000 for a mentor to find out. It's none of that shit. It's just like, okay, do the things that you know you need to do and do them really fucking well for a long period of time and detach from when it's going to happen and just keep fucking going. If you keep going, you cannot lose.
Yeah.
But this is the problem that people have. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people struggle with this because we want shit now. And when it doesn't happen now, we then lose belief, we lose faith that it's going to happen, and you just move on to the next thing, and then the fucking process repeats itself over and over and over again. Yeah. And so, obviously, there's been a number of pivots and a number of shifts like over the years, but it's very much so been, okay, I'm just locked in. This is the long-term game. Yeah. Long-term game. And so to see results in long-term, you got to fucking be consistent. And so that's where it all kind of stemmed from.
It's interesting, the sporting side of things, because when I've had, I look back and it's like I've achieved a certain amount in my business. You can look at following. I don't really think that's a good data point. But let's say the podcast, let's say all those things. I had the intention at the start of I want to have great conversations. Doesn't mean I get to 100 and stop. Like there's no trophy. No one's gonna bring me a trophy when I get to 1,000 and go, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
You've successfully completed podcasting. There's no, you can look at people like Joe Rogan and be like, is that what you want? With that, with my businesses, with my mission and things that I want to do with helping people, it's like, you don't help this many people and then stop. It's if you want to do it, you keep doing it. And I think the athletic side of things was with soccer, you don't train once and then you win the trophy. It was, you have a pre-season, you have season, and then you go for it. And I remember one time being in a change room, I think it was in the Netherlands, so I was like translating in my head. But he said, we focus one game at a time. Don't worry about them. We don't have goal for the end of the season. And I sat there and went, that doesn't make sense. Yes, one game at a time, but we have to have some sort of goal to where we're going. We don't want to play each game and be like, oh, if we end up last, we end up last. We were striving for something. So have that in mind, where we want to be. And if it was mid-table, whatever, then we go with intention into each training session of, okay, we're going into this game. There's a win, draw, lose, right, in soccer. But we train to get that result. And then we adapt and shift. And that's how I've brought that into my life, where it's like, I don't have a trophy at the end of this year that I'm competing towards. I have my goals and things for the business that I want to have and with the podcast, but it's like 10, 20 years. I look at people like DiMartini and even Tony Robbins, and I'm like, he didn't say 1 year, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it doesn't work, then fuck it.
Yeah.
Because if you had done that, like you said, if you had done, if this doesn't work, then that's it.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think that.
I think once you have a strong intention and mission, it's not a 2 years and that's it.
Exactly.
I've got a child now. I don't go, I'm going to be a good father for a year.
Yeah.
It's lifelong, bro. You just got to keep doing it and fail along the way. And it was great advice from some of the parents around me were like, you can't get it wrong. You will make mistakes, but you can't get it wrong. Yeah. Even if you were a terrible parent, is that wrong? Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, but of course. It's consistently showing up for that.
Exactly
relationships,
right.
Your health, your business, all of these things.
100%. Yeah. It's just that compounding. It's the same as money, right? Like Bob Proctor talks about it a lot with wealth. I think he used one example. I can't remember the exact numbers, but he was talking about putting $20 away a week in your 20s and just continuing to put away a $20 note every single week, and how much that compounds to over the span of 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so it's the same shit. Like, I think there's almost like a bit of entitlement. You see it all the time, entitlement of like, okay, I've been doing this for 3 months. Like, what the fuck? When's it going to all work? It's like, bruh, give me a spell. Fucking year 10. And, and so, and that, the way that you navigate that is to remove the
expectation,
entitlement and expectation, like, to an extent. I think the expectation should be that it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when, but not putting like a time frame on it of like, okay, it's got to happen in a year, because if it doesn't happen in that year, now you've seen that as a failure. But if you had said it's going to happen in 10 years, then you'd be on track.
It reminds me of that. I don't know if you've seen this image on social media where it's like, it's a cartoon and
I've seen it,
digging for the diamond. Yeah. And there's like one guy that's digging and then he gave up just before it, whereas this guy's,
Yeah, exactly right.
People give up too soon. And with things like health, mental and physical, and your life, why? Like, I sit here and go, why are you giving up? Like, you've got plenty. For example, you were talking about vibration before and being, the energy of it. If this conversation, or even DiMartini, or anyone that I've interviewed in the past 3 months, there's been a lot of success on the podcast. I was telling you, the views and the downloads, unreal. I've had a year off because of my own life shit happening. So, but people see it now and go, oh my God, you've only been doing it for 3 months. And no, I have fucking not. It's been 6 years. Yeah. I pivoted and adjusted my branding and come back to, what really aligns with me. Oh, what do you know? It's working because I'm aligned with those things. But if this was an opportunity a year ago, I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We would have had a conversation, but I wouldn't have been this. And it wasn't a matter of me going, I'll wait till I'm ready. It's that I wasn't in that period of my life to then go after these opportunities. But when I did those consistent things, I think this is such a good message from yourself, is that consistent small things to get myself in a better place. It wasn't aiming for this or this. It was just like, just keep doing those things and eventually I'll feel better.
Yeah.
And what do you know, mid this year, I started looking better, feeling better. My mindset was getting much better. I was getting business opportunities. Things started to come into my life. Then it was like a natural progression. Okay, podcast again.
Yep.
And now this. And all these opportunities are just... It takes the patience of doing it. And I think that was the shift of like, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
You said urgency before. Urgency to take action.
Yeah.
Because I can't sit here and go, I'm going to manifest everything by sitting here.
Yeah.
That's the part of the law of attraction that people misunderstand.
Correct.
Urgency to, well, I'm going to take those action steps now, but I've got the patience to, we don't know how much life we've got left to live, but I'm in it for the long game.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also, this ties back into what I was saying before, right? If week 1 of your 10-year journey, your focus is on how can I feel the way that I want to feel now. Now things shift a bit.
Yeah.
Because now you're not constantly thinking about how long is left. Because it doesn't matter. You know, you're already feeling the way that you want to feel. You're already starting to embody the version of yourself that you're saying that you want to become. You know, again, like there's nothing outside of ourselves that is going to give us something that we don't already have.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, that's not to say that we don't want to set these intentions of attracting success or reaching milestones. I think obviously you want to, but it's looking at that milestone and going, okay, well, if I was to hit that milestone, what would I do differently? How would I be if I hit it? And what parts of that can I start to implement now? Yeah. So now it doesn't feel like, oh, fucking how long is left until I get this thing? Because like, you know, I just want to feel good, or I just want to feel successful, or I just want to be whatever. It's like, okay, well, just what of that can you start feeling now? Because now even from like a vibrational level, it makes sense. Yeah. You know, it's like, the example I use with the vibrational stuff is like getting in your car and saying you want to listen to Fox FM and then putting it on a completely different radio station channel and then wondering why you can't hear it. It's like, well, you don't even have to go out and you don't have to go and make Fox FM. You don't have to go and find it. You just need to tune your frequency into the right channel and all of a sudden you hear it.
Yeah. And
so it's just like, okay, how can I kind of embody the things that I can do now? Obviously, there's aspects of it that you can't. You know, if you're wanting to become someone that's, you know, generates a lot of financial wealth, you're not going to go out and start buying fucking Ferraris when you're week 1, are you? But it's all the other aspects. It's like, okay, if I was wealthy, I would be prioritizing my health and fitness every single day. If I was wealthy, I'd probably try and connect with more wealthy people. If I was wealthy, I would give back. And so I can start giving back now. It doesn't have to be heaps of money, or it could be my time. It could be a compliment. It could be fucking whatever. So there's heaps of aspects that we can implement now. And I think that's what people miss. You know, too many people waiting. You know, we said it before. Waiting to start, waiting to finish, waiting. When half of the shit that they're saying they want could be experienced right now. And so now that you're experiencing it, now it makes sense that you're going to attract these outcomes anyway, because you're in alignment with it. You're on the right frequency.
Yeah. Someone that posts a lot, if you had one more post that you could put up, and that was your last message to everyone, and you couldn't post again after that, whatever reason, you're alive, but like, you know,
yeah,
just locked.
Yeah.
What would your message be?
That's a good question. It's a very good question, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I know the answer or exactly what I would say. I think it'd be something on the lines of just do the thing. You know, Chris Williamson says it all the time now. But it's just do the thing. I think so many people, as I said before, are kind of holding off or waiting for something to then go and do the thing that they want to do. People right now, it's whatever the date is today, we're in November. There's already people talking about what they're going to do for their New Year's goals. Why the fuck are we waiting until January to start a goal that could be started right now? This is the thing. It's like people just putting shit off all the time. Hard conversation, have it now. Hate my job. Start looking at how you can transition into start a side hustle until that becomes something that you can shift into full time, or just quit the job. Like, do the thing that you know that you should do, but you've been fucking avoiding, because there's so many of them, right? There's so many. As I said, it could be a conversation, it could be quitting the job, could be asking the girl or the guy out on a date, it could be whatever, starting the business, releasing the first podcast episode. Like, I tell this story about the podcast all the time. Like, I had in my notes, like, the name of the podcast, the amount of episodes I put out per week, some of the guests I wanted to have on, the format of the show, all this shit for months. And I remember it was either, I feel as though it was Grant Cardone, either one of his audio books or maybe just one of his podcast episodes. And it was just something simple like, don't wait till tomorrow to do something that could be done today. And so I just read online, typed in how to start a podcast and upload it to Apple. Followed this blog post, it had like 20 steps or something. Went to JB Hi-Fi, bought like a $150 mic, used GarageBand on my Mac, submitted my podcast to Apple that very day. And, since then, spent an episode a week and spent the next 2 to 3 years using the same $150 mic on a GarageBand, using GarageBand on my Mac. But if I had have held off until I felt like I was good at podcasting, probably would never have started, and so there wasn't a right time. Like, I've actually never listened to one episode of my own podcast, to be perfectly honest with everyone. But if you went back and listened to the first 50 to 100 episodes, that'd be shit. Like, I'm sure the content was good and, the guests were great, but I was shit at podcasting. Shit. Like, so bad. But it doesn't matter because I'm not now. But if I started a podcast now, I would be shit. And so it's like, okay, you've got your choice. You can either be shit now or shit later. It's basically the ultimatum, right? But I think that'd be the messaging. Just do the thing that you know you should do, that you've been thinking about for ages, and you're just too scared to do it.
Literally having this conversation with someone this morning in a voice note, and they were like, "Oh, I'll wait till I have the money to get the right cameras." And I said, "I had no cameras for like 80 episodes. I only got cameras because it was DeMartini, and I was like, I better film this."
Yeah.
If you got a phone, just you don't need all the things to start either. Just start. It could be so little. I love that. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because of the experiences and the feelings that I have been able to experience doing the things that I do. Right? I said to you before that a lot of my business, or all of my businesses, are just a reflection or a mirror of myself. And that's not an ego thing. That's more of like a reflection of what I've experienced or my journey and my experiences. And so going from lacking confidence, lacking self-belief, being a people pleaser, to then feeling the liberation of the lightness of just being authentic and in alignment. It's going from, not feeling confident in my body or wanting to achieve a certain look, and then just going and doing it and getting to experience the feeling of accomplishment, of the discipline that comes with achieving that, and knowing how good that feels and wanting other people to experience it. Personal development, same thing, like seeing the shifts that I've seen in my headspace, but also with my relationships, my business, finances, everything. I want more people to experience it. And so it's kind of like I just go out and do shit, share my takeaways from it, and hopefully that adds value to someone else who needs to hear it. Right? I think it is a little bit egotistical to say that you're going to leave. Well, I mean, I want to leave a legacy, of course, right? But I mean, Hormozy talks about this a lot. He put out this really good post about a month after the Queen passed away. He was like, she was the Queen of England. Like, every single person in the world knew who she was, and not one person has thought or spoke about her in this past week, and it's only been a month. So to think that anything that you or I do is going to be fucking thought and talked about for a long period of time is pretty crazy, but it should, in my opinion, should still be, well, it is for myself, the ambition or the intention to leave some kind of mark. Whether it is, it doesn't need to be people fucking talking about you or anything like that after you're gone or even while you're here, but it's more so like, being able to go to bed knowing that every single night, knowing that at least someone's life is significantly better based off something that I've been able to help them with. To me, that's super inspiring. And particularly, as I said, early days, like having no real self-belief, confidence, or not really feeling like I was that worthy of, not that I wasn't worthy, but just not feeling like I was enough, right? And so now being able to know that from just going through all that difficult shit and coming out on the other side of it and being able to share it to then hopefully save someone else from having to feel those shit feelings that I felt, and getting to experience how good it feels to follow through with what you're passionate about, or to persevere with something that's difficult and get to the other side of it and know that, like, okay, thank fuck I didn't give up on this and just kept going with it. It's a feeling that everyone has access to, but not everyone experiences. And so it's my job to try and navigate people to a position where they can experience it.
Yeah, I love that. It shows in how genuine your impact is and what you share. Like, even, coming into this conversation, I had no idea where it was going to go. Didn't realize we have been mentored by similar people in terms of the books and the audios and stuff like that. But it doesn't surprise me that you've got the mindset that you have now by listening to that sort of content. And, even the fact that, looking at your profile and following you since whatever day it was never a matter of like me going, oh, I'm going to meet this guy one day, or I need to be in fitness in order to have a conversation. It was just, I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to connect with awesome people. And it just so happened when, we had the Big Joe come over and stuff like that. And then, there was obviously something that I was doing my thing enough for you to go, yeah, I'll come on the podcast. Like,
of course.
Seems awesome. Yeah. Whereas if it wasn't, it wouldn't all happen. I think like there's so many powerful points in here that so many people can take away, and whether it's consistency, whether it's being authentic, things that can be implemented today that aren't wait till then.
Yeah, correct.
Where can people find you? What have you got coming up that people can access?
People can find me probably just through social media. Instagram I'm pretty active on, so just DJK Fitness and the podcast, Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. You find the rest of the stuff in there. What have we got coming up? I mean, you mentioned before Unify. That's something that we're obviously very passionate about and building at the moment. So it's very much in alignment with what we've spoken about today. Just really, really enjoying the journey of it all. There is no rush. I want to do things the way that we want to do them and build it into something that lasts much longer than myself and my fiance Danielle. So that's what we're working on at the moment. Much of the same. Based off what we've spoken about today, the answer to this is basically probably been the same for like the last fucking 10 years, in a sense. Obviously, there's a lot of evolution and a lot of change in a sense, but it's still pretty similar. It's like getting to January 1st is not like this brand new list of things that I've never thought or spoken about before. It's practically the same shit year in, year out, but it's just gradually evolving and trying to build towards and pivoting when necessary, and just continuing to evolve and just try and become the best person I can possibly be, pretty much. And as I said before, have an impact in some way or another is the goal. So more stuff on social media. Probably, as I said, pretty active on there, and podcasts.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. Grateful for the
Pleasure.
conversation and the ability to connect and share in that, because, a lot of awesome points in there for people. So if you're listening or watching, make sure you leave a little comment, but also go across and follow Danny. He's got some good stuff out there. And if anything inspires you in there, again, on the podcast page, there'll be little snippets that you can share with people. I think that's a powerful thing to share with someone else. If something stood out for you and you think it would benefit someone, they're the seeds that we can plant in all the things that we do. So until next time, guys, take care. Peace.